Therapy Talk Thursdays here at EYPC. My name is Terrence Jones. I'll be your host for today, joined with my lovely partners, our CEO, Ms. Tawanda Darden, and my main man, Dr. Reginald Wells, who is one of our clinical supervisors here at our great organization. We are a community mental health organization serving Virginia and serving Georgia. And if you want to know more about us, you can go to our website at www.ey4pc.com. You can give us a call at 804-789-1314. And if you're listening and you think you may be involved in a crisis situation, you can call the crisis hotline at 988. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Miss Tawanda.
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like I hear myself in the background
You
somewhere.
did on my phone. My bad. My
Like,
bad.
man,
Technical difficulty.
what a day! What a day, Dr. Wells. How you doing today, sir?
Doing okay. Looking forward to the upcoming days. So making things
Yeah,
happen.
man. This topic, and if you're watching, man, we really want a lot of comments in this one because this is our work, but we also know what it feels like to kind of be on the other side of the you're crazy type of thing. In fact, I feel like in our community, you can't get no help because everybody thinks you're crazy. But what we're gonna do is talk about today the taboo that has been surrounding mental health care and mental health in the Black community for I don't know how long. It might even be since 1866. I don't know. I really can't remember a period where the Black community has embraced mental health wholly. I think now would probably be the time when it's kind of coming that way, but I don't remember growing up with significant mental health care in the Black community at all. And it just seems like to say that you might need some help, to actually get that help, to make certain boundaries about yourself and your mental well-being, seems like that's not really accepted a lot in the Black community. So we want to dive into that, and we
Yeah.
want to know why, and we want to know why from you guys and why it's the case. Dr. Wells, am I off? I see you were nodding your head, but I feel like mental health care for the Black community is sort of like a third or fourth option, even if it's an option at all. What do you think about that?
I mean, I agree with you. I think what has happened decades upon decades, we have always believed in certain steps, but getting into that, just using the term mental health, for a lot of people, first of all, just that term itself, we usually get that misconstrued because the moment we say mental health, we're not thinking that every person has to have mental health. We
Right.
talk about physical health. We talk about a healthy community. But the moment you say the term mental health, immediately we go to the thought of this person must be talking about somebody's crazy or somebody is getting ready to hurt themselves. And so we've gotten so used to self-care. And what I mean by that, I'm putting that in parentheses, such as self-medicating,
Mm-hmm.
such as, beat it out of you, pray it out of you, and these are the things that have gone on for years. And even this generation now, that we know that mental health is important and how we go about it, and we have more resources than ever before. But there's still a huge gap when it comes to generations, even with my generation versus the ones 2 or 3 decades afterwards. They're understanding. I'm going to go talk to my therapist.
Right.
Versus my generation is still like, yeah, I'll do it, but maybe one time, but I ain't going it second and third time.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And like you're saying, and like I was saying earlier, it's some of this generation, but it's still excuse me, it's still not enough to where, and I looked at some numbers earlier. Yeah, I'll throw one out right now. Nomni, California did a survey. The survey showed that 63% of Black people believe that a mental health condition is a sign of personal weakness. 63%. 6 out of 10 Black people feel like if you got a mental health issue or you got a diagnosis, then you're weak. What is that about? That's ridiculous. 23% of Black people receive mental health care who need it, as opposed to 41% of white people. Uh, Here again, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 Black people say, "Hey, you know what? We need to. I need to get some help." But almost half of the white people in the same numbers get some help. So it's like we're all over the place,
Right.
and we really don't feel like. Well, let me ask this, and for everybody checking in, I want to ask this question really quick. Does everybody really think that mental health is important? Like, I know that might sound like a really basic question, but if you look at how we handle this, how we blow it off, how you're talking about, Dr. Wells, the self-medication,
Yeah.
even sometimes the self-care, which is important, it's not necessarily therapy. It could be a component of therapy, but it's
Mhm.
not necessarily therapy. Like, Tawana, do you think we think it's, I know you think it's important and we on this, but do you think typically the average Black man, Black woman feels like mental health care is important?
So I would say I do think they know it's important. I think the problem is trusting someone to get vulnerable with, to have these courageous conversations without feeling they are being judged, they are being singled out, or they are simply crazy, right? Because
Mhm.
I tell staff all the time, we don't use the word crazy,
Right.
right? We just use the, listen, we got a couple issues that we got to deal with. So I think sometimes it's the reason why people don't get the help, it's other contributing factors. One could be the insurance. One could be because I don't have someone looking like me that can kind of vibe with me, because a Caucasian person can't help me, like, or gonna understand. I'm not gonna say they can't help, because they can, but
Mhm.
understand my story or what I'm dealing with. So I think a lot of the factors is it's not that they don't want to. I think it comes to, how do I
Mhm.
get to a place where I am ready
Mhm.
to get
Mhm.
help
Mhm.
without feeling I'm gonna lose my cool card, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
I'm gonna be looked at or judged, or I just go to God and I just pray about it and I just leave it there and I wait on God to work it out. That's for my Baptist folks out there. That's for my Pentecostal folks out there, because
Mhm.
that's the mentality. Bring it to the altar, leave there. Not that God won't do what He was promises that He will do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That, because we know God can do anything. He can do anything but fail. However, God also says faith without works is dead.
Mhm.
So while you
Mhm.
got all the faith, while you got all the prayers, God's still requiring us to get vulnerable enough to get the work done, to
Mhm.
go get the help, to seek the help, to make ourselves available to receive the help. So yeah, Terrence, I do believe that not only can we or do we want to, I think it just coming to a place where, how do we get the help? Like,
Mhm.
and not feel like we're plagued with all of these other things that's in our mind.
Yeah. 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 I agree. Dr. Wells, I throw you the same question. What do you think? Why do you think mental health care isn't or wasn't widely accepted in the Black community as a form of preventative care?
I, I immediately, as Miss Dart was talking, my mind just went back to some historical stuff. I'm thinking about the experiments in the Tuskegee. I'm thinking about
Mm.
some of the stuff that happened in the southern areas with just regular doctors, or quote unquote regular doctors in the
Mhm.
past, and how many people now, even though they see again that they have many of us that are out there doing the work, they still look at a lot of the history. And especially when you start talking to psychiatrists and we start talking about medication and stuff, you can talk to people over and over again and say medication is not necessary, but you want to cover every avenue. And if you go up to a certain degree of like what the help looks like, from a life coach to a licensed person to you're getting into the psychiatrist, the higher up that you go, the more reluctant people are wanting to go in. And
Mhm.
Miss Darden also hit the nail on the head, which is, if I don't find a lot of people that don't look like me that are supposed to be trying to help me, I'm more reluctant, because I think they're not going to really understand my problem. If I walk
Right.
into an office and I see your, $500,000 office you bought on your own, and you own it in the nice car, I'm already like, we already got a disconnect.
Right.
You know,
We
you
don't
don't
we
even
don't
want to
look
come
the
to my
same.
house.
Right. You're
You
not
know
gonna
what I mean?
understand.
Yeah. So but when I read a lot of the stuff that I've been reading, like in the past month, one of the things that I've been noticing too with that whole taboo is people saying something has to be wrong with you, and there's no way you're gonna be able to get out of this. So why try? Because they're not only looking at what you're doing, but then they're looking at your environment. Your mama didn't leave that neighborhood. Your grandma didn't leave that neighborhood. Y'all always been like that. So to just tell somebody I'm going to get help,
Right.
it is that again that thing of well, you must not be capable of handling yourself and your family and everybody else, and it's just discouraging. But again, I think there's still that gap because you know this generation 20 years from now is like, no, I'm going to go get that help. I'm going in there. And they'll announce it, social media, whatever. I just talked to my therapist about 15 minutes ago, and they'll you put their own therapy session out there. So it's just this. I think the taboos are also different where you got that group that says we don't talk about this stuff or try versus if you don't talk about it, something must be really wrong with y'all. So it's just this disconnect in our community as far as understanding the importance of maintaining mental health and for that works for you and not also compare yourself to other people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do. Thanks for everybody. I see we got a few people coming in. We're talking about taboo of mental health in the Black community. And I want to ask everybody who's watching, I want to ask this question and hit me up in the comments section. Do you think it's a matter of trust when it comes to community mental health? I know Tawanda and Dr. Wells were talking about, for those who provide mental health care, to be honest, it's hard to trust some of these individuals. So a lot of them don't look like us. A lot of them, they present to be in a far higher socioeconomic status than the average Black family. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But what do you guys think? Do you think not being able to trust the provider is an issue? But you know what? I'm just thinking, we trust other ethnicities on the corner store, and we trust them to sell us
Come on, sir.
alcohol and tobacco
Yeah.
products, and
Yeah.
we trust that the chicken that they cook in that same store with the very dirty floor is good, and we trust that. So I wonder, here we got Waco says, I think it's the stigma of being called crazy.
Yeah, but
Mm.
I think the one thing with just the statement you made is it's us being able to control it because I get to go in there and use my money and I get to go in there and get what I want. I'm in and out. Even though I may go in and have a full-blown argument with the guy behind the cash register, or I'm arguing with somebody who ain't there. I mean, how many videos we see lately of now the people that work in the store, they filming the folks that's coming in is arguing with somebody and they're like, who they talking to?
Right.
But we just, again, it's normal stuff, or we're laughing at it now. It's become comical when we see that guy that's on the corner that's dancing for everybody to come at the light, and we just see that it's a normal thing as compared to we got to go get help. And like you said, if it means that I got to go in and talk to this Caucasian guy or this guy that is from somewhere in India or whatever, with all the numbers and credentials and all the people that go in there, we don't really care about that because again, and let's be honest too, how many of us have done some things in this field that have made people go, well,
I can't trust you.
I can't trust you because your office got shut down because of some
Correct.
craziness. So I remember my grandma talking about, somebody got some medicine and they ain't been right since. So
Right.
it's just anything where we have to make ourselves vulnerable becomes more difficult for us.
Yeah, I agree. You touched on something that Tawanda talked about earlier, and I want to go back to it because she was talking about the insurance situation with a lot of families and ultimately the money situation. Do you guys think economics is an issue with access to mental health care for the Black community? Is it an economic
Absolutely.
thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You see, what I've seen is they will put funding in low income communities, knowing that because the low income Black and brown individuals aren't educated on why they need the help. They'll put that pot of money there because they know that money's not gonna move, because no one's out there knocking on the door and explaining them, hey, I want to talk to you about this because of this, and inviting them to a safe place. Right. Everybody just want to do the survey. Everybody just want to, oh, if you having this, just show up here. And then when they show up, no one's there. Look at the housing community. They got all this money for housing, but yes, the homelessness is arising. And guess what? Homelessness is connected to mental health too, y'all. Let me be very transparent. Yeah, because if I got to sleep behind a trash can or a dumpster or in a park somewhere, and I got to dig for food, I'm in survival mode. So now I'm talking to myself.
Yep.
Right. Absolutely. Now I'm trying to figure out, where do I belong, or do I need to live? Am I better off dead? Because they'll take their money, that pocket full of funding. They'll take that funding and put it there in a community that's not aware, that don't know, that don't understand,
right,
and don't see it as a safe. Because I just was talking to our attorney yesterday. She is a immigration attorney, and she was like, Ms. Darden, I just see you do so much work, or whatever you need me to talk to folks, let me know. I said, the problem is, that while I've been out there for a whole year, we did nothing but events in Hispanic communities. Yep. They grab and they go. Yeah. Why? Because they're scared. Not that they don't need access to mental health, because a lot of them are undocumented. A lot of them can't get they can get insurance, but they don't know that they can trust them. That if I put my name on this dotted line, because I haven't built community, because I haven't built a relationship, because you haven't showed me a safe space, that I can trust you, right? That's why we don't hear about these individuals until they're dead, because they OD'd, because they, or they had a mental break, or they killed their whole family, because they've been in survival mode, because I can't trust you. Why? Because there's no access. Right. And the access that y'all put in my community, is it truly access? Or is it a diversion to get me up out of here? So I think that's an issue, Terrence.
I agree. I agree. And that trickles down to the money, because if I can't get insurance to get this, now I got to pay out of pocket. Oh, I'm definitely not doing that.
And I can't afford to.
I can't afford to pay out of pocket.
I got 12 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Right.
I remember watching an interview with Dave Chappelle. He even talked about this in one of his stand-up comedy routines. And he talked about the view of when the opioid crisis happened. Mm-hmm. He said, when we were dealing with the crack epidemic, and we still were dealing with mental health issues, it was viewed as this, it was vilified, the people were vilified, the communities were vilified. When the opium was put out in the community, and the Caucasian people and certain other ethnicities, even from other countries, were dealing with it, it then became a health crisis. Right. And all of a sudden, you saw the politicians, you saw everybody coming in. And, his statement was, it was really something that he's, when Dave Chappelle said, he said, you know what, I feel y'all, and I didn't care then. And people laugh, but then, knowing Dave Chappelle, he makes you think. And I thought about it, I said, you know what, that's how we really feel.
That's how we really
feel that way for us when we were struggling. Y'all were making the movies. Y'all were doing all these crazy television shows. And when it hit y'all, all of a sudden it was like you wanted us to care or somehow feel the same way. And people was just like, how you going to care? We still dealing with this stuff. Yeah. I still got my uncle who's 67 and cousin or brother or whoever that's still dealing with this. And now all of a sudden it's become a country's crisis. No, we've been here. Y'all just catching up. So it again goes back to the stigma that goes behind it. And sometimes we're already riding in the boat, and now you putting the labels on the side. We're like, bro, we've been here. We already been dealing with this stuff. So we've been asking for the help. And like Ms. Darden is saying, it's just people go in and it's like, I'm in survival mode when it comes to this. So if you're going to give me a food or the backpack or these things, or even let me sign up for stuff, once I start getting into it and I'm starting to go, oh, wait a minute, you starting to hit.
You're asking too many questions. Now you get me uncomfortable.
I'm going to back off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And picking back to what you said, Dr. Wills, which is funny, is because I remember when and I think they started doing when they started letting all these guys out of prison, right? Reese last year, Terrence, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading about like what made them make this change, right? Was it because that they realized they've over convicted our young men, or was it because they really want to help our young men because they made a mistake in society as they come back in? Because if a black person got caught selling, a white person got caught selling drugs or doing drugs, we sending them away to get them help, right?
Right.
The funding shows up.
Right.
But if a black person selling drugs, they getting convicted, they going to jail, right? Yeah. And then when they get in jail, their mental health is really activated. Okay. Mm-hmm. They go to spiraling out, coming out with personality disorders, major depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, all of those moments. And then we release them back into the community. Okay, we messed up. I thank you for recognizing that. But then we make it hard for them to get access.
Yeah.
We make it hard. How many individuals have we known that got out of prison, Terrence, that don't have access to any type of Medicaid, nothing?
Yeah, none.
And here's the wild thing.
Go ahead.
Our dear President Donald Trump.
Wait.
World's famous mugshot.
He's not our president.
Not our president.
Wait. Listen. I'm just being sarcastic with it. I'm being honestly sarcastic with it. But he had that mugshot. If y'all would have read the stories in Atlanta, how all of a sudden they had story on top of story on top of story of Fulton County Jail. It's infested. It's full of bugs. Mm-hmm. Look at all the people that have been
taken care of. People have died there.
It's been for decades.
Yeah.
This stuff been going on. People died.
Well, because he showed up, it got exposed.
Now all of this happened. And this is just kind of the steps that happen where you in the mental health field are just sitting there shaking your head like, we work with people that been in and out of that jail. We work with people that we've gotten calls from time to time. I got a colleague that has to do anger management groups with a lot of those individuals. He'll tell you when they come into this room, they really just let me get through. But for some of them, they're like, I'm taking a breather because I'm out of that room and all the crazy stuff that I hear. And then you got the other ones that just got out a month or so afterwards. And they're still struggling. Like we're talking about taboo, they're still struggling with the fact of, I went home and my family calling me crazy and nobody want to deal with me. And so now I got to deal with the stress of what I went through in there. Then I got to deal with some more stress coming out. But when this happened, he was quick in, quick out. It was everybody celebrating, whole parade down there. But I'm like, did anybody stop for a moment to read those stories and go, wait a minute now, and this is just, again, people, we've been in the boat. We've been riding in this boat. Y'all just not recognizing stuff.
Now the boat getting holes in it.
Yeah, this country since its inception has always been concerned with other people who they deem valuable than certain other people. That's unfortunate, and it trickles right down to healthcare, and it trickles right down to mental health. And it trickles down to economics, because if a group of people or a person is suppressed, then part of that suppression is the ability to make money, make a livable income, and have benefits to go with that. And if you don't have it, then what can you do? I see Apostle Tammy is with us, and she made a comment. She said, "Can't afford to," and so you can't afford to, but you can't afford not to.
I got a question.
It is so difficult. What you got, Dr. Wells?
I'm reading the one from Shalonda Waller. She said the same with the fentanyl situation in schools. Mm-hmm. Black kids arrested versus white kids getting drug treatment. I got to ask a question because I haven't had a chance to really read into the fentanyl. And I know we're talking about taboo in the community, but when I've been reading a lot about it, again, it does come out in these areas that are more rural, not really dealing with us. And we find ourselves here at EYPC a lot of time talking to a lot of kids, no matter what the ethnicity is, but we're having to remind them, like, look, you just can't smoke the weed and do all this other stuff behind your friend.
You don't know what's in it.
But I'm just sitting here again. I'm kind of wondering when it comes to the schools, and maybe Ms. Waller can put in some feedback with majority, minority students in the schools. Do we see those programs coming in? as compared to if I'm in an area where it's more Caucasian, more affluent? Like, do we see them trying, or do we just, because I would think and hope that maybe, and you know, this is just Dr. Wells being optimistic and somewhat stupid, you know, that they will look back. I know Ms. Dawn, like, why you say that? Because I'm looking back and I'm going, did y'all learn a lesson from what happened with the crack epidemic and the opioid epidemic? And now fentanyl has come in. And I watched the first debate, and it came up and everybody went crazy. Of course, they went sideways, and it's because of illegal people coming in and yada, yada, yada. And I'm sitting there going, as a mental health person, I'm going, it's here. Y'all still ain't talking about, are we going to address the mental health issues of people getting this stuff to try to cope with the pain and the suffering and everything? Because a lot of people would tell you, I'm using this stuff and I'd rather like to, you know, dealing with HIPAA, I'm gonna change the story up. I had a person tell me, I will smoke it, hoping I don't never wake up again. So I'm just asking, just reading her comment, like, do you think we learn our lesson and we are trying now to change it, or is it, you know, business as usual that we're not putting it in our, you know, if it's 87% minority students, well, we'll wait on that versus, hey, we got a crisis going on in this community where our more affluent, more rich, you know, like, is that still a problem? Are we still here?
Well, look, let me tell you something I do know. Here's what I do know. This will never show up on the news report, but the large number of consumers come from those affluent communities.
Right.
Lots of a lot. So the game was, you know, you live where you live, but you hustle where they paying.
Correct.
So, you know, they're the ones that's paying. Right. Here's the second thing that I know. No quote unquote respected school is going to include a open drug rehabilitation program in their school, because what that says is, oh, y'all got a problem.
Y'all got a problem. That's exactly what I was about to say. This is no longer DARE, right? We used to have DARE. This is no longer DARE.
Right. Yeah.
This is now a problem that's going to mess up funding. It's going to mess up my attendance. It's going to mess up my account.
And I guess that's accreditation. That's the wrestling match I have, because I'm sitting there going, all right.
But we just dealt with that, Dr. Wells. Remember, we were just in a conference, and my question was, what are y'all doing to help these kids and educate these kids? And she was like, I can't answer. Well, this is a website. No. The same way we educate them about Hitler for months, we need to educate them about drugs.
Look at this.
It needs to be a part of the program.
Look what Shalonda says. Shalonda says there are no programs specifically at my daughter's school. They usually send out information or try to inform parents once the situation has already
it's too late.
occurred. It's too late.
But that's what's happening. Going back to our topic with taboo, we're already struggling. We're trying to help our communities and say, hey, we want to have a conversation. We want to meet with you guys. We want to go to your churches or libraries or whatever. But when you find yourself just passing out a pamphlet, you know, how many times there's been a conference, or if you did a fair or something and you were passing out information, and then when everybody left, you look in the garbage can, it's halfway filled. Mm-hmm. Because again, you got people just going, it's a situation of people going, I don't want the pamphlet. I need somebody to really come talk to me, but we're trying to help you make those steps. And even with this situation where she's saying they usually send out information, like she said, it's too late. Somebody has gotten sick. Somebody done died. They trying to avoid a news story. And it's like, we've been trying to have this conversation with y'all.
I guess my question was, parents, when did we start holding schools, our local cities and towns accountable? Because everybody got a mayor, everybody got a congressman, everyone has a district leader, everyone has a superintendent, and so forth on. When are you going to start demanding what you see these kids need to be exposed to? Because guess what? I would rather for them to educate my son about drugs, fentanyl, safe use, than educate him about sexual education.
Yep.
That can wait.
You know what, Tawanda?
We're in a crisis.
I'm sitting here while you're saying, and I'm thinking about all of the political seat candidates that we know. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think which one of them has a significant mental health care platform.
Correct.
And I really can't think of anyone. And we look, this is not a knock on anybody. And I know some people do care, but I can't think of anyone who is running their campaign on access to mental health care. But I can think of a lot of them who are running their campaign of being tough on crime,
Right.
who are being tough on drugs,
Right.
and things that appear to give a band-aid to the situation. Because here's the reality: it's easier to lock the
Mm,
dealer up than to help the person in pain. To lock
correct.
the dealer up, that's a cop, that's a prison or jail that we already got. But then to help the person in pain, now you're talking about long-term mental health care that includes a community of people.
Correct.
A lot of communities not they don't do that. And then when you look at who's actually at the distribution or the ground level distribution side, which is our community, oh yeah, look, a lot of people. I had a guy tell me one time, it was so profound. This was years ago. He said that the drug dealer is no better than the drug user. He
Mm,
said the drug dealer and the drug user share the exact same thing, which is an addiction. And sometimes that addiction is to the same drug, particularly if you have to make the drug where you are. He said each and every day or night, when he stands over that stove putting together that product, if any of you know anything about how that works, the fumes that come are as intoxicating as the person that's going to smoke it up later.
or shoot it up.
Yeah. So that the dope dealer is getting high cooking and he's selling, but he can't wait to get back in the kitchen because he's getting high just like the person he's selling it to. So now
Right.
you got two people on two sides of the game, but both of them are dealing with pain that is unhealed, uncounseled, no therapeutic help, no clinical help. And like you said, Dr. Wells earlier, they are self-medicating and sending themselves to a path of destruction.
Right.
And the theory is you make more money treating people than curing them.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, it's unfortunate that there are no real active programs in schools because look, nobody's stupid. Everybody know what's going on, and I think we're at the part now where not everybody, but some of these counties, some of these school districts can begin to talk about this thing openly. Part of what we do, really a big part of EYPC's work, is to break down that barrier. That's why our services come to you because we understand some of the gaps and deficits that communities and
Right.
school systems present. So we look to fill out those gaps or fill in those gaps. That's why us and organizations like us are really helpful and impactful for the community because we need it. We need it. Let
Right.
me ask this question. Is Black mental health care taboo, meaning that the fact that mental health care is something that we kind of push under the rug, we don't really deal with it? Is it an internal issue, meaning that it's something that we brought on ourselves, or is it external, meaning that it's other communities and other forces that are impacting the Black community and making us feel the way we feel about mental health? What would you say to that, Dr. Wells? You first. What would you say?
I choose the letter D. It's both.
What's D? Both.
Um, you can. It's so much research out there when you talk about that generational trauma stuff that has come from. Let's talk about slavery all the way up, and we still dealing with it. We're still dealing with this stuff, and we got people out there like recently. Y'all up in Virginia, they just had the Black Therapist Conference up there, and that was the whole theme of dealing with generational trauma. And one of the biggest things that they said was the battle for the Black male or female is always going to be an internal and external issue. Because even if you're doing the work inside, you still got to figure out how do I acclimate myself still to
Yep.
situations on the job and the school and when it comes to sexuality and all these things. I just had, for example, me and my wife had a long conversation last night. She was just talking about what was happening on her job and what all the Black employees noticed for the first time. They're just kind of looking at the CEO and the vice president of this and vice president of that. And she was giving an example of one person who, quit and just said, I'm done. And it was because they felt like I can never get past this. And one of the things they said was, well, I'm never going to be able to advance. And that's my anxiety. I'm thinking of how I'm going to maintain this, the house, how I'm going to get through, let alone the stuff that I was already struggling with inside from things I dealt with years ago. So it's both, I believe it's on both ends. And sometimes it may be more internally for some versus more externally for others.
Yeah.
Wow. What about you, Tawanda? What do you think? You think it's internal or
so
external?
I do think a lot of it's probably internal, because I do believe that there's so much trauma, right? And if we don't learn to heal what's on the inside of us, we're going to get exposed to what's on the outside of us.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of if I have high blood pressure, which I do, if I don't take care of myself internally, like take my medicine, watch my diet, make sure I don't do no salt, walk, and drink water like I'm supposed to, that's internal. That's something I can control because I'm educated on it, right? And so if I don't do these things, when I go outside, I take the risk of having a stroke, having a heart attack, going to the doctor. It's no different than our mental health. So if we got some things on the inside that we don't deal with, and a lot of times we want to put the Band-Aid on it. It's oozing out, isn't gotten infected, right? But we constantly trying to put the Neosporin and the Band-Aid on it instead of doing the internal work. The internal work, like, you know what? I got to wash this off. Guess what? I need to go get some stitches. When we know better, we do better. So if my mind is constantly in a dark place, if I'm constantly crying, if I'm constantly all over the place, if I'm constantly irritated, agitated, frustrated, that's internal. I got to do my own work before I can go out and expect the world to try to heal me. And the first part of doing your own work, especially as we talk about mental health and the taboo, pick up the phone and get some help. Hey, I need to talk to somebody. And be okay with it. Be okay with getting the healing, because you're no good to the outside. Because guess what we do is it's called transference. We'll transfer all of these emotions and we'll go out into the world with it. And now we're trying to look like, be like everything we see in the world. And now we're going to start thinking like the things in the world. Like, oh, girl, mental health is a joke. Oh, girl, you just crazy. Girl, go with your crazy stuff. No, I'm not. I'm hurting on the inside. That's eternal.
Right.
That's eternal.
What you are saying is so profound. I'm looking in the comments and most people agree that it's both. But what you're talking about is how it becomes both.
Yes.
And yes, we agree it's both. But you're right, Tawanda. Internally, if I don't handle this here, then the stuff out there, because the stuff out there is going to be there regardless. That's going to happen. But if I don't handle it internally, my defenses to the stuff out there, they break down. And now they affect me because I didn't take care of what was on the inside. I didn't get the help. Correct. I didn't drink the water. I didn't talk to the people. So now when I get out there, because I took none of that type of stuff, I get negatively impacted by the other cultures, by the toxic nature of things around me. Yeah.
And one of the questions says, what happens if I don't know I need to do the internal work? Because the external says the eternal stuff is normal. That's the problem.
That's what we talked about earlier.
We got to have some accountability, y'all. Because it's so easy to say, oh, because they doing it, I should do it. No, sometimes we got to step back, reflect. Yo, why am I so miserable?
Yep.
Why do my kids have to see me, crying all the time? Why do I have to, people have to always hear me talk negative about myself? That's some eternal work, right? And if you don't recognize that you need the internal work, if you have a community that around you that love you, they're going to identify like, listen, I see you here and I want to help you. That's that trust. That's that community. That's that, okay, I can get vulnerable, right? You're just not here today, gone today. That's that, you know what? I'm going to hold your hand.
That's that thing too that we talked about several times of externally. If I don't know how to do that, and we kind of pass the buck, I'm finna mess because the CPCS is on my link. I'm finna really mess them up. So
he said, "How do I know that I'm in the storm if I wasn't born
If I
into
was
I was
it.
born
born
into it.
and
Oh, yeah.
that's real.
That's the outside
That's the
stuff.
lightning.
So it's that whole
That's
thing
the
of being in the
thunder.
boat, and I'm trying to maneuver this boat. It goes back to what Ms. Darden is saying. If I don't have the people that have the skill set to have that conversation with me, because that's something I struggled with a while growing up. Best parents in the world, in the community, everything else. But there were things that people didn't know how to address, and I definitely didn't know how to address them. So what
You
you do
wasn't
is you
exposed to
absorb
it.
that stuff in,
Right.
and now here I am, 50, getting ready to be 51 next year, and I'm sitting here going like, I'm
Life is life.
still having life is lifing, and
Life is
now
life.
I got a little one that we were talking about a topic this morning, and this is outside of mental health, but we was talking about, well, how do I teach my kids to be Christian? And one of the things I told them, I said, we haven't taught a lot of our kids to be Christian. We taught them how to imitate us. And
Ooh,
what's
that's
happened with
good.
a lot of mental health issues is that we have taught people skill sets, and now they go back and compare that skill set when they're in the quote unquote real environment, and it's
Right.
not connecting.
Yeah.
So now what we've done is we taught the people the skill set, but the problem is we have people that say, well, I got to go back and tell people when I need to take a break, I got to walk away. But you're being challenged, and people are saying, no, you need to face this, you need to be tough, you need this and that. I ain't learned how to be, what is tough?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's those types of situations that we deal with a lot of
But I
times.
also think, when I think about this, I think about, he said something that we're not growing into a storm. We're not growing into the storm. We're not growing into all this sickness and disease either, right? We don't wake up and we have, years later, we think we check our breasts, because I'm a woman, and then we felt something. I'm not born into a mass on my breasts. I'm
Yeah.
born into growing breasts, right? I'm just going to be transparent. But when I feel like something ain't right, am I gonna sit there in it and just let that whatever my breast got going on? No, I'm going to somebody because it's starting on the internal, and I'm going to a doctor, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna get help.
Yeah.
It's
I,
no
I
different
always
than our medical, man.
I
It's
always
no
think
different.
that the two most important things of life, period, is exposure and reflection. If
Yeah,
you can't get exposed to anything, you're never gonna know. And if
yeah,
you can't look, nobody can look at themselves without a mirror. You have to have some help. So my thing is this, and this is why that when we talked about preventative mental health care or preventative health care, we got to get to that level,
yeah.
because the preventative care says, I got a therapist and I'm not waiting to talk to my therapist when something goes wrong. I
Correct.
got a therapist
I got access.
and I got access, and I'm going to use that access.
I got
So
access.
I'm not going to assume that even though it's normal for me, that it's actually normal. I'm not going to assume that. I'm going to use my access and just talk about what I'm going through, just to at least see. And then the other thing is, and we've dealt with this particularly with community mental health. You got kids growing up in certain neighborhoods, and maybe 6 or 7 blocks north or south is an entire different world,
Yeah,
full of affluence, full of
yeah.
prosperity, all of that. But they haven't even done anything to go to 6 or 7 blocks.
Hmm.
I'm always an advocate for, if you are in the position to expose a young person or
Expose them.
expose someone that doesn't know, that could benefit from knowing, expose them. If you are a person that you have not been exposed to something that's been sown in your heart that you sure would like to see, just to check it out, see if it is, then look that up, read a book, talk to some people that might be able to get there.
Google,
Because without,
YouTube,
you'll go on YouTube. Look, it now is the
everything.
easiest time in history to be exposed by something of your dreams. It's
Yeah,
the easiest time in history. Now, you might not be able to go and visit London
immediately.
or
Right.
visit Nigeria or visit LA, whatever. You might not be able to go to do that, but you can expose yourselves through the internet and begin to get an idea about where you're trying to go. It's the same thing with mental health. If you expose yourself and reflect and constantly put yourself in a place of reflection,
Yeah.
you'll increase your chances of getting that care, even though you were born into a toxic situation.
Yeah.
That was be my take on it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a question I
And
gotta ask.
so let me ask this question, Dr. Wells, so you can
Okay.
answer it. The question is, can Christianity be part of the transgenerational trauma?
Yes.
Yeah, yes,
Absolutely.
Yes.
yes, yes, and yes.
And you know why? Because of what you said, Dr. Wells. You said that many times we get our Christianity from
From
following
following
people
someone.
and how they practice it. So if
Mhm.
if if my grandfather was, now my grandfather was a deacon, but he didn't do this. Just want to put that out there if anybody is listening. But you know, if my grandfather's the deacon of the church,
Mm,
but he beats my grandmother, I'm looking at this example, and in my young mind, I may normalize how normal that is to be a person in the church and be another type of way at home.
Mhm.
If I am a pastor or a elder, and when you see me when I'm walking home from school, I see you at the pool hall, I might think it's normal. And so now I'm thinking Christianity is a part of these people's behavior. And
Mhm.
that can impact in the trauma. Because now when I get up there and I get an adult, and when I think of Christianity, I still love Jesus, but I also have this perception of what Christians do because those are the ones that did it around me.
Yeah.
And that could impact what I think about God, what I think about myself when it comes down for healing. And there may be a good member in my church that wants to identify with some pain that I have, wants to help me. I may reject them because I remember how the Christian people in my family treated people.
Mhm.
So now I got to reject you because even though your healing is good, it comes with Christianity. And the Christianity I saw ain't good for me. So I'm gonna walk away from it.
Yeah.
correct. Correct. Yeah, that's good. What do you think, Dr. Wells, before I put
And
my
yeah, because and I think this is one of those things where you get into what I call that three-headed dragon sometimes, even though it
Mhm.
really shouldn't even get associated. You got everything that was done to us as a people in the name of what they call Christianity. Then you have the people grabbed onto stuff based on their understanding and not really looking at the history of what it should be. This objective, kingdom that's outside of us, but then we injected our own stuff in it and been going on for years. Like Mr. Terrence was saying, is I get to do as I say, not as I
Yep,
do.
that's it.
And you go, but I've been seeing you do what you don't
You say
all
I
these years.
shouldn't do
I've
all
been
of
Right,
this.
seeing this stuff. And
right.
so it's now become so normalized that now when people challenge it and they talk about the trauma and everything that comes along with it, it does make us take, a stand back like, how dare these questions be asked? Oh, you got to still chill out and say, hold on for a second, though. You really got to look at this and understand that there's been a lot of things that's been ignored by the church that's or been brought in by the church that it does become very problematic for a
Yeah.
lot of folks.
Yeah. And that's so good that y'all said that, because I remember when Apostle Tammy was talking about, we're talking about Christianity and transgenerational trauma,
Mhm.
right? And, to especially our women, our young girls who've been molested by the uncle that's, the deacon, or being touched by the choir piano player, or the young boy who's
Mhm.
been touched by the preacher. Like, these are real things that's really happening. So guess what? That's transference of trauma
Hmm.
from their childhood,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of them are so confused and so lost, because this you preach one thing, you
Yep.
teach one thing,
You
but
doing
you're doing another.
one another.
So yeah, I do believe that Christianity has a lot to do with trauma.
Yep.
I surely do believe that.
And Dr.
I
Wells, you
totally
brought up a
believe
good point because, you know, because the church may have ignored therapy and mental health care for so long. Now I grow up and I see that, wait a minute, mental health care is not just, it's not bad, it's needed. Now I'm looking at the church like, well, why did y'all keep me away from this? So now, not only do I um, find or compartmentalize my healing, but I look at the church as y'all are full of it because you kept me away from some people and some systems that really could have helped me. And so then that brings on a level of trauma because you don't want to step foot in the church again because the church did you dirty. when you really needed help.
Right. 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 And that goes back to that church health, the mental health, the trauma within the church, and why
Yeah.
so many people are so disconnected and they don't want to touch the church.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much time we got?
We got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Let's talk about the taboo. And I know this, Ms. Dar might be like, that's a whole nother thing. Let's talk about the taboo of if you are a mental health worker or a licensed person, you're not supposed to have any problems.
Oh, that's a
that is still
it's
still out there.
I don't know why.
I gotta ask everybody who's a licensed person.
Let's put this the right way. If you do work in mental health care, you probably need the
more than them.
Yeah, you need
to be on
them.
somebody's couch. You have to decompress and unload all of that laundry.
Yeah, talk about it. Talk about it.
We sometimes got our own stuff going on, and it does not dismiss that we're helping everybody else. It makes us human.
Yeah.
It makes us fleshy, as I say.
Yeah.
Me, myself. Listen, my whole family in therapy.
Yeah, when we do another show next time, we need to talk about being a mental health worker, provider, or whoever, and how many times if you have family members and stuff go, well, you're supposed to know how to do this stuff. Oh, and you got to stop and go.
I mean, surgeons know how to give surgery too, but if they need surgery, you think they're gonna perform surgery on themselves? No,
it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna tell you, and we do need to do a show on this, but I'm gonna tell you guys who are listening straight up. I want you to put your mind in the mind frame of a qualified mental health professional. This qualified mental health professional is probably raising children or just taking care of themselves. And then they got to go and deal with 3 or 4 other people's mental health issues and the way that they live these things out every day from morning till night.
Oh yeah.
They got to come home and then they got to document how they were dealing with that individual, and then they got to deal with their own stuff, their own hurts, their own insecurities, their own family issues. What do you mean that we needed the most?
The most.
This is why I'm firmly a believer, and your therapist should be like just somebody that's a part of your team. Everybody should have a wellness team that should be your primary care,
your dentist, your OBGYN ladies.
Yep, for the ladies, your therapist. Somebody to help you, your financial advisor or financial coach, a spiritual counselor, something like that. You need a team. If you don't got a team, you lacking. You lacking. So yeah, we absolutely need it.
And I think that's a great point, Terrence, and that's something we probably need to talk about. What does wholeness look like in its entirety? It's not one piece of the puzzle, because as you might be plugging in that one piece, some other piece is going to lack, right?
Absolutely.
And you're going to find yourself always in a like on a, what do you call it, a seesaw, up and down, up and down. But when you want some stability in your life, you got to look at the wholeness. And we just want y'all to get whole mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially.
Yeah.
That's our goal. That's why we come on here on Thursdays, just not just to have a conversation, but to empower you. We want you to be whole and healthy, because this is not a season, y'all, to be playing.
No.
You need to be at your mind has to be at its best.
Yep.
To fight this spiritual war that we're about to fight. We ain't seen nothing yet.
Nothing
yet.
Nothing at all. Thank you, Pat, for joining in. Appreciate you. How much time we got left, Tawanda?
3:00. We are one and done.
We done. Hey, look, guys. We coming back. We're gonna dive into this a little bit more. I think we're gonna talk about the other side, which is the qualified mental health professional worker.
Next week.
Definitely want to be a part of that. We're gonna see if we can get a few people who are really in the field doing this one, because it's real. It's really real. It's really real. Make sure you go to EY4PC.com to check out all of our services, check out what we do. You can meet the team. Give us a call, 804-908-3808. If you feel like you just gave
my whole cell phone number out to Terrence. That's not our number.
I gave my cell phone number out.
Either your 908 something. That's all
I did. I gave my cell phone number out. I'm rolling. 789-1314. Man, how I do that? That's good. I need to get some counseling there right quick.
That's what happens. Be on the brain.
Yeah, be on the brain. Hey, Shalana, thank you guys for checking in. And look, thanks everybody for checking in. Share this video. We're getting off live, but the video will still be on. Share this video with somebody else so they can understand the conversation. They can be a part of the movement. Like Tawanda said, we just want to see people get whole and get better. Yeah. And we can look. What's the saying, Tawanda? What? Go ahead, hit them with it.
We do it better together, y'all.
We do it better together.
You.
We
talk about everything else. We Facebook everything else. We Instagram this. Your mental health matters. Yep. Let us just help you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Wells, can you close us out in prayer so we can get up out of here?
Yes, sir. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity again to just talk about those things that are very difficult for so many people. But you yourself, God, have given us health, whether it's mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. You give us the ability to have this through your son. We ask that you will continue to keep these questions in mind and providing these answers for us, but the people that will do the work with us, we ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you guys for hanging out.
Have a safe holiday weekend, guys. Have a safe holiday.
Be safe. And we'll see you here next week at 2 p.m. for Therapy Talk Thursdays. Love you guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye. Love y'all.